What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Inside Guelph, where our goal is to provide you with accessible and digestible information about the Guelph real estate market while connecting you to local leaders and businesses in our community. Today, you're watching the Local Leaders segment, where we invite a leader of our community and dig into what they're doing to keep Guelph uniquely Guelph, as well as what they want to do or are doing to keep our city an economic and social leader. Today, we have the Mayor of Guelph, Cam Guthrie, joining us, and we're really excited to get this started, so let's begin. Thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and your ability to come here and sit with us for a little bit. So to kick it off, I'd like to start with some icebreakers. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Go for it. I like these.
Okay, cool. What's the last show you binge watched?
Oh, so I forget the name of it, but it was on Netflix. It was that Spanish show where they're all bank robbers. They're wearing red with the masks. I forget what it was called.
That's all right.
I think that was the last one. And that was like a year ago. I think it was like right when the pandemic started. So
Right.
that'd be the first one. Although I did watch all the John Wick movies in a row like a couple weekends ago. So that was
There you go. That's pretty much binge watching as well, right? That's
yeah.
Nice. What was your first job?
Other than the paper boy delivering the newspaper, my first job was at Pizza Hut. I was a host at Pizza Hut, and I think I was in grade 11 maybe. And actually, funny story about that. I wanted to make more money, so during lunch hours at high school, the Pizza Hut was right beside the high school, and so I actually changed into my Pizza Hut uniform, ran over to Pizza Hut, worked the 1 hour during lunch, and then changed back and went back to school. So that was my first job.
That's awesome. What's your favorite thing to do when you're off the clock?
A few things. I love music. I'm a drummer, so
Cool.
I love music. I love garage sailing and going to thrift stores, and I really love vinyl. I'm not like an expert vinyl collector or anything like that, but when it comes to music, I love to find obscure things and buy it on vinyl and listen to a record. And
that's really cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Probably an interesting hobby, right? Gets you browsing through those stores and probably shopping on Amazon a little bit, find some unique.
Yeah, well, I love as you said, the stores, like the thrift stores and stuff like that. You never know what you're gonna find, like a $2 record or whatever. And
right,
some of the record stores in town here are great as well.
Really cool. All right, so let's dive into the questions about the city of Guelph. I'm really excited to dive into these. So the first series of questions is dealing with the future development of Guelph. So considering that Guelph is one of the fastest growing communities in Canada, what are we doing to supply the city with enough housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll hit everybody up with some stats right away. We're probably like 100 and almost 40,000 people right now. And under the Provincial Places to Grow Act, their growth targets for the city, we are looking at around 200,000 people by 2051. That's a lot of people in a pretty short period of time, really. So everything we do at the city quite often is always about that growth target in mind. It's, council and the mayor are making decisions today, but for the growth of the city in the future, right? So I would say that there are several pieces of land within the city of Guelph that are sort of earmarked for what's called a greenfield or not in the built up areas. And so we're looking at trying to have a good balance. 50% of our builds will be in the spaces that have not been developed yet. And the other 50% will try to be in already built up areas. That's intensification in existing neighborhoods and things like that. So the ones that kind of jump out at everybody for new builds in new areas is obviously Clare to Maltby Road. That's a huge area with probably 16,000, maybe a little bit more people will be living there. And then the old jail site, as everyone calls it in Guelph, or the York lands, those are mostly provincially owned. and we're just waiting for the province to actually dispose of those lands, and then that will be fully developed as well. And then probably another little piece as well that's in sort of the downtown, just outside the downtown core area, is the old Imico site, as it's called, and that will be an interesting infill space there. Then, as I said though, but all the other aspects of growth will be all around intensification in built-up areas, and that's how we're trying to make things work to meet those provincial growth target numbers.
Interesting. Just a curious question. So those provincial growth targets, are those just population based, or are those making sure that there's enough, mixture of different houses, like single family detached townhomes? Obviously with intensification, you're going to be developing likely more multifamily condo style. But those other lands you mentioned, are we targeting like making sure that we have single family detached homes still available in Guelph?
Yes, there will be some. It will definitely not be like it used to be. You have the land constraints, the boundaries. You have to fit X amount of people in it, and you can't meet those targets from the province by only allowing single detached homes. So you definitely are going to see a mix. And as much as we are also talking about the residential side as well, in amongst those growth numbers, there's also a complement of employment too, right? It's about people and jobs as well.
Very cool. Yeah, just when I do the market update here on the show, it really looks like the semi-detached market is very appreciated. I mean, underrepresented in the mix of products that we offer, and I'm not sure if there's any plans to make sure that it's a little bit more intense than a single family detached. Are there any plans to bring more of that product to market, or are you not really in the weeds that deep on that stuff?
Oh no, there will be, as I said, there will be single detached homes for sure. So if you think about like the Clare Maltby area in the South End as an example, probably this is high level now. It's not fully in stone here with the policies, but along Gordon Street, that's where a lot of the intensification will be. Probably higher condo buildings and such. And as you step back from that main arterial road, you're going to see it come down a little bit, probably to mid-rise. And then as it goes even further back, then you get into more neighborhood subdivisions, townhouses, row houses, single detached homes, those types of things. So we're trying to probably look at developing it in that way.
Okay, really cool.
But it's just not like it used to be though. And I mean, you're absolutely right. The demand for single detached homes is crazy. I mean, that's
right.
what everybody's wanting. And I don't, that's a good family kind of dream for a lot of people. They want to have the backyard, right? I totally get it. But it's difficult when you're forced by the province to meet certain growth targets, and you can't accomplish that purely through detached homes. So the unit mix is going to be a lot of different, but not as much single detached as it used to be 20 years ago.
For sure. And there's so many different avenues that we can go down and start talking, or we could probably talk for hours, but I'll keep it on track here. I don't want to deviate too far. But yeah, I mean, from a developer standpoint, is there anything that city's doing to make sure that we're being able to expedite the process to develop lands? Or how do you see that time frame? Do you feel from a city standpoint that the time frame to develop property is good, not good enough, or it doesn't need any improvement at all?
Well, I'd always like to see it go faster. I'm a big believer in anything that makes government go faster would be great. But as a government too, we also are a regulator, and we have that role to play as a regulator too. So we have to make sure all the checks and balances are in place, especially around environment, natural heritage, water. Guelph's a little bit different than other cities. We get our water through groundwater. We don't have a straw that goes into a lake somewhere and uses our water. So we have a little bit more steps in place purely by default because we have to protect our groundwater, as I said, whereas other communities might not have to do that. So yes, I'd like to see it go faster. I would say, again, Clare Maltby, I'd probably say that's about 10 years in the making already for those plans, but they're coming to council for final approval this fall, I believe. So we're almost there. And then on the provincial lands, the old jail site, of course, that's up to the province because that's 1,100 hectares of land, but it's mostly owned by the province. So we got to wait for them to kind of dispose of the land, and then we can implement the secondary planning document that's over top of that to get going. Intensification can be a little bit easier because it's already in the built up areas. And then the only other thing I'll mention is that we have like a continuous improvement culture here at the city of Guelph now. That's really been ingrained in our staff to empower them to figure out ways of making things go better, customer service excellence, making things go faster. And there's been a lot of good work on that over the last several years. And especially during COVID right now, we were actually pretty lucky because Guelph had a lot of technology built in before COVID about, sending in documents and doing things online. We kind of had that already set up before COVID hit. And so we were able to really keep the economy going, keep building permits going during this last year, even though some other cities didn't have some of that technology in place to be able to process those types of things. We're a very high demand city for existing developers, outside developers that want to come in. And so as I said, we will continually keep improving. And customer service is like a big issue with me. So I always like to hear the good. I don't mind hearing the bad either, because it enables us to learn and then be better.
Absolutely. And piggybacking off that. So, I mean, we're high demand. A lot of people want to come here and develop the lands here. Is there anything that we're doing from I guess, a city standpoint? I'm not sure if this is provincial or city regulated. What are we doing to keep Guelph uniquely Guelph? Are we imposing any kind of regulations on them to make sure that, we're not starting to look like every other city in our area?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that question. So the DNA of Guelph is very important to the community, to council, to me as the mayor, to staff. So we really do take our time when we are developing the upfront policies, terms of reference, our guiding principles as we look to build out these different areas that, we accept 50,000 more, 60,000 more people that are coming here, right? And one of the nice things about Guelph, it is that medium-sized city that a lot of people, we have all the amenities that people are really looking for, but we're still that kind of medium, smaller sized city. We don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that either. It's even as we've been growing over the last several years, you can still have that sort of 6th degree of separation in town. It's like, oh yeah, I know you, or you know this person, or whatever. Hi on the sidewalk, that type of an atmosphere. So I don't want to lose that at all. So community kind of embedding the Guelph DNA, even when new builds and new subdivisions come online, is really important that we continue that. I don't want to lose it.
Absolutely. And I mean, considering that we're a very green city, are we making any plans to make like a carless downtown ever, or something where we have more of a walking downtown than having traffic coming in and out all the time?
Yeah, those are in the plans. I would say, when I was on council, we did what's called a secondary plan for our downtown that sort of laid out where things could be built, how high, how many people could live, how many jobs in the downtown core. And included in that was a separate document called the Street Manual, which looks to when we redevelop or when we do infrastructure work and put it back together, let's not put it back together in our downtown core the same way it's been. So let's push the sidewalks out. Let's make it more pedestrian friendly. Let's make it beautiful, inviting, a great culture in the downtown core. I'm a big believer in trying to make it more of a car-free destinational branding, marketing opportunity for our city. And I can understand that would be years out if we were to go to a completely carless. And maybe it would be completely carless in the downtown core, maybe just for the summer months or something like that, right? As a draw. But I think we could get there. I think there's a lot of people behind the idea as well on that vision. So I love to try to keep pushing us towards that. But it's expensive. And as we replace underground infrastructure that's like 100 years old, that's the time to think about, okay, well, how we put it back together, we don't want to put it back the same. But even in new, like we talk about, 100-year-old or whatever downtown, but even as we talk about Claremont B as an example, where all those new people are going to live, we also want to have that type of an atmosphere and culture in that area too. We want to have lots of trails. We want to have separated bicycle lanes. We want to try to create net zero community there from an environmental standpoint and embed a lot of the environmental protections in those areas. So, this is a great opportunity as a city that has a big piece of land to actually try to embed these types of policies in new builds to see how these things will actually intersect with the existing city that's already been here for so many years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one loves, I guess, not anyone that I've talked to loves the urban sprawl look. Where you got strip mall kind of looks all the time. Probably for efficiency purposes, we understand it, but from a cultural standpoint, there's not really doesn't really do a lot to like create community, right?
I'm with you. Honestly, I'm with you, and that's we are taking that type of approach as you just defined it into the new builds to make sure that we're trying to, as I said, incorporate the new with the old.
Absolutely. And yeah, we really feel here, anyways, that we have a great opportunity in the downtown area to really separate the city of Guelph from any other city in our area. Like you said, I mean, there's a culture here that, if we really worked at it, we could really have a really interesting vibe that will be a very cool destination area.
Yeah,
I think it's just a much larger Allure. I think Allure is doing a great job with bringing a destination
yeah,
downtown, and
yeah, yeah.
we could have something similar. Cool.
Anything I can do to beat Laura with marketing and branding, I know the mayor there very well, so
Absolutely.
that's not a problem.
Absolutely. Here we go. Let me just skip to here. Yeah, so I mean, I guess just a quick one here. If we do reach those boundaries by 2051 and we're starting to bust by the seams a little bit, are there any expansion plans outside of those boundaries, or do we have opportunities to grow outside of our boundaries or not?
It's not on the radar, and I would obviously answer the question if,
Sure.
if it was. It's not on the radar for that. There's a lot of protectionism in sort of Arkle, Aberfoyle, area from those communities. It was way back in the mid '90s, I believe, that we did annex at that time the Clare Maltby. I keep bringing that area up. The Clare Maltby area was annexed into Guelph. So it really, there's nothing further from an annexation type of viewpoint that's on our radar right now. The province goals are set to meet them within existing boundary. The only thing that has been a little bit in the public realm is trying to see. It's called Dolime. It's where the aggregate is along the Hanlon there.
Okay.
That little aggregate pit is actually not in Guelph. Everyone thinks it's in Guelph, but it's actually not in Guelph. And we're looking at maybe that area there, but that's more around water management and not really so much about too much, planning stuff there. It could be planning for mixed use or residential maybe later on, but that's really the only thing that's been talked about over several years.
Yeah, okay. I think I know the area you mean. It's right by the Hanlon, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right in the heart of the city, almost.
Yeah.
But okay, very interesting. What is there any updates around the Innovation District area, Watson and Victoria? Are we still on track to build a net zero community there?
Yeah, so that's the old jail lands. Yeah,
Okay,
and that's a good that you mentioned that. So as much as I said, net zero and environmentally friendly community, Clare Maltby, that the reason why I mentioned that is because that's the secondary plan that we're still working on and looking to actually approve this year. But the Innovation District, those secondary plans, which embed exactly what you just said, net zero type of a community, those were approved by council in 2013, 14, something like that. So those plans are already in place. So the development plans are already in place. The principles are already in place, but it's not our land. We just got to wait for the province to dispose of it.
Okay.
It's in the boundaries of Guelph, but not our land.
So we'll have to get on that. Get them to give it to us, right?
Yeah, what? I mean, I don't blame the provincial government for wanting to get rid of surplus land. I mean, they need the money,
Right.
They need to get rid of it all across the province. But I think there's some environmental issues about where the old jail site used to be that they've been cleaning up over the past couple of years. So they're trying to get the land ready to have it go out. So I would imagine it would probably happen really soon.
Okay, that's great to know. Switching gears a little bit to economic development. Here we go. So yeah, based on the recent developments with the dining district that just happened, can you tell us what the thought process was for not moving forward with the dining district?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for like specific counselors, but I will speak for, on the one side of the ledger of some of the issues that had come up that were, rightly needed to be addressed. So,
Okay.
Transit was one, that main intersection where it was closed last year. had a majority of the bus routes going through there. So to have them go around created some route problems, timing issues. Now there was some solutions embedded in the report this year to address that, but that was some of the concerns. Um, some people said, well, it's a fairness issue. Like it might help out one business, but it might not help out another business. And so that was an issue. Some people actually still wanted it to happen, but wanted it to expand. So that's another way of actually, people were concerned that it was only that intersection where they're like, well, hey, why can't, my street be closed down, and try to have that foot traffic there too. So, there was some financial costs too that some people felt it would cost quite a bit of money to do that. So those were some of the sort of on the one side of the ledger of some issues that popped up from some people that didn't want to move forward with it the same as last year. So this year, council decided, okay, we're not going to do it exactly the same as last year. We're also not going to do it not at all. We're going to do it, but we're going to allow patios to go onto the sidewalks. We're going to allow patios to even go into the parking spaces out in front of those places. But we're not going to allow it to spill right out onto the streets. And so we're going to look at closing streets over a series of 12 or 13, I think, weekends, starting in May, ending in September. And it won't expand any dining capacity, but it will allow that area to be pedestrian friendly, allow people to walk on the streets. And, hopefully past COVID, we can look to program those areas. And what I mean by that is music and culture and arts, and we can have bands playing, or the mayor playing a drum solo or whatever, right? So no one would come down to see that though. But that type of thing will be exciting. So it's not just about come down and walk the streets and you're like, oh, this is great. It's like come down, walk the streets, experience culture, experience art, music, and at the same time, open your wallet and support all the businesses in the downtown. It's not just about that intersection, even though that's where it was almost by default, because that's where most of the restaurants were. But as I said, there's a lot of other retail and other service industry places that are fantastic in the downtown that you can go explore everywhere.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, at least coming out of COVID here, the city has found an opportunity to live that vision of potentially a pedestrian heavy downtown. And I mean, sure, we might not be getting exactly what we hope for from a Guelphite standpoint. I think there was a lot of people like the citizens of Guelph really wanted it to come back, but at least it sounds like the city's making strides in the right direction to create a more experience of Guelph and then bring more traffic downtown. Because bringing traffic downtown, I think would be a great cause for the city for sure.
Well, amen. I'm with you on that. And I think the best thing to, end that conversation with is last year was kind of a pilot project. We got a lot of good data and a lot of good feedback. This year, we're doing it a little bit different. And I would view it almost through the same way. It's another pilot project. Let's try it just closing it on weekends and not having more capacity for tables, but let's try that out, and then we'll get more feedback about that. And so I think this is a baby steps type of thing, as you said, towards that vision, that long-term vision of looking to pedestrianize the downtown core. It's something that I want to do for sure.
Okay, awesome. Has COVID changed the city of Guelph's economic development strategy?
Yeah, I think a little bit. First of all, economic strategy can also include tourism too, because that's an economic driver as well, right? So from a tourism point of view, if it's of course kind of decimated tourism everywhere. So we're really thinking about how are we going to bounce back under the tourism lens? And we're looking for upper levels of government help with that. And there is some money coming that way. And then when it comes to just straight up economic development, more like having supports for the existing businesses to either expand and succeed, or to draw brand new businesses to come to our city. We're still doing what we've always done there to support the existing ones and to try to draw new ones to the city. So has it impacted a little bit? Yes. But again, no fault of like our staff or no fault of the businesses that might even been wanting to come here. Everyone's kind of doing a pause moment, right? Everyone's like, well, I'm not going to bring my factory or business here right now because I don't know what's going on in the world of COVID. And that's all fair, right? But
Right.
we continue to have, I was just talking to our economic development department last week. We continue to have lots of interest from outside of Guelph for businesses to come here.
Yeah, that was going to piggyback my next question. So we do have a lot of interest of people coming here. That's great. A lot of business coming here. So do we have to do anything special to attract these businesses, or is Guelph just such a desirable area to start a business that we don't really need to do anything? Because some communities are giving handouts out, right, to attract business. What's Guelph doing?
Yeah, so here's the interesting thing. We attract a lot of people to come here because we're Guelph, but we have to expand what that means. So, we are geographically in a very sweet spot. We are, especially the employment lands at the south end of Guelph. I mean, those are great. You are literally 3 minutes away from the 401. I mean, exactly. So that is perfect, right? We have a very good pool of talent of potential employees here. That is a huge draw for a lot of people. The University of Guelph is also a major draw for people from certain sectors around partnering with the University of Guelph and the city for those types of businesses. We're known for clean tech, water, green energy, that type of fields, and so we're starting to attract a lot of businesses in that kind of theme, and those are good paying jobs. Those are good paying jobs that people that can have for long term. And then from your first, I think it was your first question, from sort of a process point of view, we're also, of course, trying to roll out the red carpet from a customer service point of view about trying to get things done quickly for people when they want to come here. Because you have to remember, in Ontario, it's actually it's actually against the law to actually give incentives for companies to come here. Okay. In Ontario all around. So we really have to put our best foot forward from all those other categories I talked to you about, because we are competing with the states where they can, do way more incentives than maybe we can do here. But even with some of those states that we're competing with, or elsewhere that we're competing with in Ontario, we still do have people that would like to come here for other good benefits and other good reasons.
Okay. And I mean, one of those benefits seems like there's a two-way GO train station coming from Kitchener to Guelph. So how is that going to impact the downtown area, in your opinion?
Well, it's actually the entire corridor. So Toronto to Kitchener. Okay. So it's all-day two-way GO service will happen. They're hoping 2025.
Okay.
And so that's going to be a game changer, and not just on employment stuff. That's going to be a game changer for residential. Yeah. Where you can live in Guelph and choose to live here, and you can work in Toronto or work in Kitchener, and you can get on that train every half an hour and go back and forth, whatever you want. I mean, that would be incredible. It's gonna, I'm seeing the market right now, blow up. And I was actually talking to some other realtors a couple of days ago, and we were talking exactly about this all-day two-way GO issue. It's like, if you think it's crazy now, just think about 2025, 2026, when the transportation issue is taken care of. We're going to become even a more attractive community for that. But specifically to your question about what about the impacts to the downtown. So from a residential point of view, I think you're going to see, we've always wanted to have about 9,000 new people living in our downtown core. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you're seeing, the tri-car buildings, the condo buildings, the Fusion Metalworks project, those types of projects are going to continue to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be a really attractional for people. I think it's going to be a really attractional for millennial and young people to come down and experience that kind of condo and great downtown atmosphere. But then be able to use the transportation of the all-day two-way GO network to get, if they need to get to work or whatever. But at the same time of those kind of great benefits, another impact is that train is going to be going right through the middle of our city. And so there are some, roadways and at-grade train crossing issues that we have to kind of plan with Metrolinx around as well. So as they upgrade the infrastructure to allow all-day two-way GO to happen, we also have to be respectful to the existing, 150-year-old area, or that these trains are going to be going through existing neighborhoods too. So we got to balance that. It's going to happen, but we just got to do it in a really respectful way.
And those train lines have been already outlined, so we obviously know where all those train lines are going and what potential residential areas are being impacted, or what's that look like?
Yeah, it's the existing trail line. It's the existing rail line.
Okay.
And it's going to, but there's going to be some infrastructure upgrades when it gets finally to electrification. There's going to be upgrades at the station for double tracking potentially. So all of that was actually kind of announced in the provincial budget a couple of weeks ago, which is great. It's the first time that it was announced in there. So it's real now. It's a real thing. So if people come downtown in front of the River Run Center and they see that massive, huge old steam engine train that was moved there a few months ago, that used to be right in front of the Metrolinx staging area for the train. We had to move it out of the way so they could get some infrastructure going there to accommodate the 2025 goal of all-day two-way go.
That's really exciting, and definitely I'm excited to be a real estate owner here in Guelph, because like you said, I think it's going to do really great things for the city.
It's going to.
Yeah, no one likes to sit in traffic for 4 hours a day. So this is going to be, I think that's what stops a lot of people, right? Like, I mean, they're like, oh man, I don't want to sit in traffic for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But this is great. All right, just to keep going here. One of the last segments we have is with the Baker Street redevelopment. I know it was a bit of a hot topic for some people. And I think there was some lack of clarity around what it really meant or what it really was. So many people, when they heard Baker Street redevelopment, thought it was just the city of Guelph just doing a very expensive library. So that being said, where can people go to understand what the actual plans are that's being built? And can you elaborate a little bit what the plan is there? It's not just a library, is it, Cam?
No. So I don't have the link, exactly off the top of my head, but
we'll link it down below and when we put it on.
Yeah, if you go to guelph.ca and then there's a search bar there and just put in Baker Street, you'll land on the Baker Street site, and it will walk you through everything that's there. So you're exactly right. It's not just a library. So there is both a public and a private portion to the redevelopment of the Baker Street parking lot. It will be the biggest redevelopment project in the city's history. You're probably looking at 300 million, maybe around that, maybe more. And the public portion will be probably in the 120 range, 130 million range. And then the rest of it will be the private sector. So there was a heated, debate and discussion around the library, which was a portion of the6public side of it. But the other portion of the public side of it is, so it's library, underground parking, the green space, parkette up at the top of Wyndham. All of that is going to be sort of the public portion, underground infrastructure to accommodate those types of things. The private sector portion on the Baker Street parking lot will be 2 towers, residential, ground floor, probably commercial areas, and other opportunities there to redevelop that area on the private sector side of it. So I've been kind of preaching this since I became mayor, but it is turning an underdeveloped asset into a performing asset for the city. So a parking lot basically brings in zero for the city of Guelph. It doesn't do anything. But if we turn that asset into a performing asset by, putting the public side into it, putting the private sector side, we start to get taxes, we start to get people, we start to reactivate the upper portion of Wyndham Street, which is really struggling with retail and leasing for commercial space, and it starts to draw people to that area of the downtown, beautify it, turn it into something beautiful. And so it's important, and I'm glad you started the question with, is it just a library? It's important for people to know it's way more than just a library. Yes, there was a lot of debate and discussion on the cost of the library. I get that. But council made the decision. We're moving forward, and it will be nice to get that done.
Absolutely. And I mean, once someone gets more informed about the entire scope of the project, yes, the library is definitely a cost involved. But I mean, when you look at the grand scheme of the thing, the project is very exciting, in my opinion.
Well, it really is. And yeah, like it probably will bring in like $1 million a year in taxes that we're currently not getting, right?
Right.
Now we have to pay for servicing and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not like it's a wash or anything, but it's definitely putting underperforming asset into a performing asset. And that's a good thing. And I think it's going to be, I think, you know what, it better be beautiful for the amount of money
Yeah.
that it is. It better be beautiful. And I trust that it will be.
Absolutely. So just a quick question here. Like, how do you think people got so misinformed about this in the first place? And how can maybe we do a better job in the future to make sure people are properly informed about the whole scope of the project versus just having such a narrow mind, like just a narrow focus on just one aspect of what the whole project was potentially supposed to be?
Well, there could be, you know, that could be a communication gap. You know, I was pretty vocal about just the library portion of it at that time before the vote, and you know, I felt like it was too much money at that time before the vote happened, and so you know, probably it just became its own sort of, you know, issue that people were focusing on because of the library portion and the costs at that time that were being debated. But you know, this is a great opportunity to maybe correct some of the communication, even just me and you talking right now about how it is more than just a library. And you know, I have learned this both as a counselor and as mayor that, you know, in the heat of the moment, in the debate and the discussion, there are, you know, there's anxiety and unknowns and fear and opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But once projects, whether they're public sector projects or even private sector projects of new developments in the city, once they're done and it's landscaped and it's programmed and it's beautiful and people are living there, people are going to go, this is awesome. They're good at that point. They usually kind of say like, wow, this is pretty amazing, you know. And I think there's going to be that wow moment in 5 years or whatever when it's finally done, that people are going to be like, yeah, this is going to be a landmark for Guelph, and it's going to be a good thing.
That's great. I mean, yeah, I mean, the revenue that it's going to hopefully bring in will definitely pay hand over fist for the cost of the library. That's going to happen. So that's just a neat point there. I mean, we're really excited for that. So here's a question. I know, you know, considering some historic events of, you know, keeping on budget with kind of these kinds of projects, what kind of control measures are we putting into place to make sure that we don't have to reach into the citizens' pockets to pay for any budget blows?
Yeah, so after when I got elected, there was really a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Good controls that were put into place. We actually created a department that's staffed, that oversee projects, and they're put into 3 tiers. You know, kind of small, medium, and large types of projects. And not only did we create that department, but we also became a lot more transparent. So every quarter now, we actually release publicly what's going on with these large projects and throughout the entire construction of those projects. So every quarter, everybody sees exactly how far along it is, what's the expenses at, what's going on, to keep everyone really transparent about these issues. And I think it's important. People, you know, often see, you know, large projects that can sometimes, you know, go over a little bit. But you know what? The reality is that people forget the Victoria Road Rec Center renovation was like $15 million. That came in on budget.
Nice.
The $21 million Wilson Street Parkade that's over to my left here, that came in under budget, but no one talks about that, right? So, you know, we have the controls in place. There are sometimes discrepancies between builders and us. But that can happen in you know, renovating your bathroom at home too, right? So sometimes those things happen. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty confident in the controls that we have in place. And overall, we are very good with coming in on budget, and sometimes, as I gave an example, even under budget for some of these large projects.
Incredible. Yeah. And I mean, now that, we're going to start digging into those resources as well, and potentially, hopefully, giving some more updates in this show. Because sometimes people just don't know where to find the information, right? So
Yeah,
just
and
bringing
have
the information to people is sometimes important.
yeah, I just remember the name of that department. It just lost me for a second, but it's PMO, not Prime Minister's office. It is a project management office. So again, if you go to guelph.ca and put it in the search thing, PMO, project management office, you'll see that was created 6-7 years ago, and then that all the projects that are underneath that are transparently given to the public quarterly.
Okay, great. So Cam, I really appreciate all the time you spent with me today answering all these questions. Is there anything else you want to say before we end the show?
No, I mean, thank you for having me. I'm happy to come on. I'm happy to come on quarterly if you want me to.
All right, sounds good.
To update the city on everything. I mean, these types of discussions are really good to have, and you've touched on like all kind of the hot topic issues. But there's always an ongoing change of hot topic issues every little bit in this job. So I'm happy to come on and just have these discussions. I think it's great to get the message out on what's going on, what's working, what's not, what we can use the community help on, whatever. So happy to come on anytime. If people want more information, they can obviously go to guelph.ca. And if they want to follow me, you can on all my social media. I'm sure you'll put it up.
We'll put it in the video.
Okay. And then my only last statement would be, especially at this time, I want just everyone to try to be kind to each other and respectful and look out for everyone's safety and health. It's a totally frustrating time right now. I totally get that. But let's look out for each other and support small business and do the Guelph thing that we're known to do, whether it's a COVID issue or a non-COVID issue. We're really good at rallying around community support. And I appreciate you and your team, what you guys do actually for engaging with the community and promoting the community of Guelph in a positive way too. You're a part of that DNA of Guelph, so I appreciate that. So be safe and have me back anytime.
All right, Cam, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, see ya.
See ya. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Cam Guthrie. And if you like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so next time we do something like this, you'll be notified. And hey, if you want to get a conversation going, feel free to leave a comment or even share this with a friend. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys had a great day and see you next time.